Welcome to Cook 30. I'm Jeremy Dixon from the Revive Cafes in Auckland, New Zealand, and also author of the Revive Cafe cookbooks. And today I'm really excited to be able to share with you some cafe-style meals that you can cook at home. Cook 30 food is all about using whole foods. We're going to be using plant-based protein sources, whole grains, fresh fruit and vegetables, and wrapping it all together with international flavours and herbs and spices. And the best part, it does not have to take you hours slaving away in your kitchen. I'm going to show you a great meal combination in the next 30 minutes. On the menu today we have a delicious beetroot and fennel risotto with healthy Parmeshew cheese. We also have a Mediterranean vegetable mingle and garlicky cilantro chickpeas. And to finish, these amazing strawberry cheesecake glasses. So doing meals in a short amount of time doesn't just happen by accident. A little planning goes a long, long way. Start with a clear work surface. You've got a chopping board, a sharp knife, all the ingredients out on the counter that you're going to need, pots on the stove, and we're ready to start. So first job is things are going to take the longest. So we're going to start with something that's going to take a while, and we're going to start with the risotto. So I'm going to use this pot here. I'm going to turn the flame on, get it warmed up. And we're going to start with a nice base of onion, celery and garlic, which is a great start for many, many meals. So I'm just going to chop this relatively finely, just like that. And this risotto we're going to do in a couple of parts. And this risotto is probably not your conventional kind of chef's school risotto. This risotto can take many, many hours to make. So I'll start with a little bit of oil. So this is kind of just a quick version, taking quite a few shortcuts. So a French chef would probably scorn on this recipe, but I think it tastes really, really good and it's really quick to make at home. So I hope you will forgive me for that. So get some onions on. We're going to put some garlic in as well. So just get your garlic crusher, put the garlic in and just squeeze it through like that. And we'll just take the garlic off. I'm going to add some celery as well. Celery goes really well with onion. Oop, that bit isn't very fresh. We won't be using that. But here we go. So probably 2 bigger stalks or 3 smaller stalks. Just going to nip off the ends that are slightly weathered. And just going to chop these finely. So just put them in half. And when you're chopping, if you can kind of economise on all your cuts, so I'm just going to do that, and that way I minimise the number of cuts. So you can cut a lot more at a time. You don't want to be cutting every individual stalk individually. So put those guys in. Have a party with the onions and the garlic. I'm going to turn that down to low and just give that a couple of minutes just to soften up. And kind of all the sweetness will come out of the celery and the onion. Once you kind of add water or stock to onions, they kind of stop kind of becoming sweet, so you want to make sure you get to that stage where they're caramelised and soft first. Oh, bit of celery escaped. Oh, sorry, also got fennel seed. That's another spice or herb we're going to add. So fennel seed is a lovely, the cut looks like this. It's kind of a lovely, it's got kind of an aniseedy kind of taste. And when you bite into a dish and get the occasional kind of bit of fennel, it just adds a little bit of zing to your meal. So adding about a tablespoon of fennel seed in there as well. You want it just to kind of get a bit heated, and the heat will help activate the flavours in the fennel. Now to go with this is we've got a really nice alternative to Parmesan cheese, and I'm going to call it a Parmeshew cheese. Because we're going to use cashew nuts, very simple recipe, and you can make it once and leave it in your refrigerator and it'll last weeks. So we'll start with about a cup of cashew nuts and a good tablespoon of nutritional yeast flakes. That's a very good tablespoon. And we're just going to blend it in the blender. That's all you need to do. And that's about enough. We don't want to do too much or it starts to become kind of moist and clumping together. And basically that fine powder is a really nice alternative to Parmesan cheese. Getting most of it out there. I'll need a spoon, help it along. So if you blend it for more than what I did then, the whole lot will become very stuck to the bottom like that. So you want to just blend it for a relatively short time. And it's just a nice salty, creamy kind of texture. And so we'll stir some of that in with the risotto near the end, and also have it as a garnish on top and an accompaniment that you can kind of add on top as well. So that's all done. We'll leave it to the side, and that's just something that we've got done now and we don't have to worry about later. Okay, back to these onions, softening up nicely. So they don't have to be perfect, but at least they've kind of got that raw edge off them. So we're now going to add some ingredients from the refrigerator. And I've actually going to use some pre-cooked short grain rice. Now I usually use long grain rice because it's a lot quicker to cook. Short grain rice takes probably about 30 to 40 minutes. So I generally pre-cook short grain rice. We've got about 3 cups here. I'm going to put in here to join the onions and the celery. And short grain rice is kind of more of a risotto kind of rice, whereas your long grain rice you generally have under curries and things. You could use long grain rice, it's not essential, but traditionally risotto will have a more kind of fatter rice texture to it. And we're going to add some stock to this as well. So I've got some organic vegetable broth, so make sure you find a good stock. And we want around about probably 2 cups. Although leave some on the side, you might want to add a bit more later, just depending on how the texture goes near the end. So 2 cups is kind of a good starter amount. And we want all that lovely stock to kind of be infused into the rice. Also, I've got some, you can buy beetroot that are pre-cooked. So I've got some of these little beetroot. So I'm just going to, I might open this over the sink, it might kind of go everywhere. There we go. I think it's just going to go everywhere anyway. So we've got these beetroot, or beets, depending on what country you're in. These are just pre-cooked and really convenient. You can also just put some beetroot into a pot yourself and cook them up. Either way, it doesn't matter. And we're just going to cut these up, just really roughly. No kind of format or anything, just very rustically. So yeah, saving time by using these pre-cooked ones is a good way of keeping it. Keeping the program under 30 minutes, of course. So lovely and rustically chopped, and we're going to put these into as much juice as we can, and into that with that beetroot, with that rice and that stock, and that colour and flavour will just infuse through all of that. I'll just turn it up a bit so we can bring it back to the boil and stir it through. And so this looks very. Not that interesting at this stage, but give it probably 20 minutes for all those flavours and colours to mingle together, and hopefully by the end of it we'll have a really nice risotto. So second job underway. Just have a bit of a clear of the board, just so we're ready for our next recipe. Don't want beetroot getting on everything. Beetroot stains are reasonably permanent. So 2 excellent jobs underway. Next we're going to start on the cheesecake, and when you say cheesecake, people's kind of eyes lights up. Everyone loves cheesecake, and this is a lovely healthy version using nuts and dried fruit. So we want to do the base first, and we're going to actually make it in these little glasses rather than do a cheesecake in like a big kind of a pan or something. We'll do it in glasses. So we're going to start with the base, and the base, which would traditionally probably be sugary biscuits and condensed milk and stuff like that. We're just going to make it with almonds and dates. So we're going to use a cup of almonds and just put them into the food processor. That's about a cup. And about 3/4 cup of dates. You could probably substitute other different nuts and fruits if you wanted as well, but I know the date almond thing works reasonably well. That's probably about 3/4 cup there. One more, there we go. Just going to add a couple of tablespoons of some shredded coconut. Make sure it's unsweetened. And we're just going to blend this. We'll process it. Now you could make this mixture in a normal kind of blender like this, because you need to have liquids happening in this. So because it's kind of a dry base, you do need a food processor for it. We're going to get that underway. We're going to give it a few seconds just to mush around. Meanwhile, I'll just keep this stirring. It's kind of boiling now. So we'll just turn it down a little bit. And might just add a little bit more stock. You kind of want the rice to be kind of covered in the stock. So we'll probably up that to around about 3 cups. Every time you make risotto, it's kind of different. Here we go. Look at that. Back to the almonds, the base. As you can see, that's lovely and kind of want it a bit more stuck together. So I'm going to add a little bit more fruit. And that's going to just help stick it together. So again, these bases turn out different every time depending on the ingredients. So just a few more dates in there will add a bit more moisture and should hopefully have a bit more of a mixture that's going to stick together. Although because it's a cheesecake, it's just a reasonably flexible recipe. Look at that. And all we're going to do now is extract, get the blade out. Careful these blades, they can be very, very sharp. Cut my fingers on them many times. And we're just going to scoop out some of this mixture and put it in the glasses. This is going to be our base. Just like that. So you probably want around about perhaps a third of the glass to be there. I've actually done more than I need, so you can actually make probably more than 4 glasses, or you could make a little cheesecake as well. I'm just going to press it down a little bit, not excessively, but just enough to be a base. You could use nice wine glasses for this with stems, or there's many different lovely glasses you can get. So don't want it to be too hard like a proper cheesecake base. It doesn't need to be transported anywhere or sliced. So you want your guests to be able to dig through and enjoy it. So we don't want to push it down too tightly, but just enough so it's, there we go. It's kind of stable. That about even, nearly. So we could probably actually make a few more later if we wanted. So that's the base, and now the strawberry filling, which is the most important part. Now this has an ingredient, coconut oil, so I'm just going to put a little pan on the stove here, and we're going to put some coconut oil in. And this coconut oil is liquid when it's hot and goes really, really hard when it's cold. So we're going to put around about 3 tablespoons. So this is quite a high, it's quite a rich dessert, so you don't want huge amounts. So I'm just going to put 2 to 3 tablespoons of coconut oil. Just melt that briefly, and we're going to pour that in, and that'll harden up. So I'm going to start that now, and that'll take probably about 30 seconds to melt down. And we're going to start the strawberry filling. So we've got some frozen strawberries. So we just want, let me check my recipe here, around about 1 cup of frozen strawberries. And these are frozen, but I've had them out of the fridge probably 10 minutes just to soften them up a bit so they're not 100% kind of hard. There's a good cup. And then we're going to have some cashew nuts. So we want 1.5 cups of cashews. And we want some water, so I've got 3/4 cup of water. Going to add 2 tablespoons of honey. Strawberries are generally a little bit acidic and a little bit, so they usually need a little bit of sweetener just to kind of carry them through. And I also have some limes here. So I'm going to have some lime juice, and we want quite a lot of lime. So we want around about 4 tablespoons. And you get around about 1 tablespoon per lime or lemon, although this does vary considerably. The rice is bubbling away. So I would love the challenge in the kitchen of having many dishes on the go at a time. It really kind of, your brain has to really get around everything. But it's quite a challenge to have everything going. But timing in restaurants and cafes and at home is probably the main thing, is, a little bit of planning, thinking out what's coming next, what do I have to do next. So that coconut oil is pretty much melted, so that started off being a white kind of oil, and now that's all very thin. So we're going to put it in there like that. If you didn't heat up that oil, that would just become like little white flecks through it, which is what we don't want. And now we're going to blend it and make our base. There you go, and it kind of looks like a smoothie at this stage. So we're just going to pour this over in these glasses, over this base. And that is a lovely cheesecake mixture. Go low to start with. You don't want to, oh, there's a few little lumps in there, but that's no problem. A little bit of rusticness, it's not the end of the world. You don't want to underfill. Whoop, I might have done that there. Might have to adjust that later. Oop, I'll show you a trick. We'll just get a spoon and just share some. This is my problem I do with a lot of recipes. Just share it evenly. You don't want to be the person that ends up with the cheesecake that isn't quite as full as the rest, do you? There we go, that's evened it up. Or create any arguments at the dinner table. So these are going to go in the freezer. And the reason for that is that we want them to really harden up, and that coconut oil will kind of make everything nice and hard like a cheesecake. And in about 20 minutes or so, it should be ready to serve. If you've just joined us on Cook 30, we are making a beetroot and fennel risotto with a healthy Parmeshew cheese, a Mediterranean vegetable mingle, and these lovely garlicky cilantro chickpeas. And to finish off, strawberry cheesecake glasses. So now we want to do this vegetables. So we're going to put this pan on relatively hot to start with, Mediterranean vegetables. So we've just got some Mediterranean vegetables here, which consists of peppers, zucchini, onion and asparagus, and very colourful ones as well. So we want them to be colourful. We're just going to cook them very lightly, so they're kind of just soft, but they're still going to retain all their shape and colour. So the onions are going in first because they're going to take the longest, and we want to retain this lovely purpleness. So we're going to cut them nice and big. So we'll start with a bit of olive oil and put these in here. First vegetable down. So it's basically just a chopping session. So we've got these lovely bell peppers, or capsicum. I call them capsicum in New Zealand. Just rip out the tops. So when you're preparing vegetables, you kind of want to almost have one side of your board that has got the stuff that's ready to chop, and one side that has all the stuff that's in progress, and get rid of all the things you don't want to have into your food first, like all the seeds and ends of things. And then you've got a board that's full of stuff that you can put in, and you can just chop freely, knowing that everything else is available. So we're just going to chop these into cubes. So we want these to be kind of feature ingredients. We don't want them to melt away, but just be nice, crispy, flavoursome. So they're going to be cooked just enough so that the sweetness is coming out of them, but not so much that they're kind of soggy and limp and lose their colour. So you probably want to, about 5 minutes max is what you're after. And again, the rule for any kind of dish is lots of colour. Now depending on your season, some vegetables can sometimes be expensive, so you can substitute them with other vegetables if you want. But this kind of Mediterranean combination is actually quite a nice one. And we're not using any kind of vegetable that's going to go soggy like cabbage or anything like that. We want everything to remain nice and crisp and crunchy. Give it a stir around. Got a zucchini or courgette. And my favourite way of cutting these is kind of cross cuts. So cut it in half and just alternate cuts. They look kind of random in kind of a organised way. So we've got red, yellow, orange, green and purple. So that's kind of the key to it all. For asparagus, you want to just break it in kind of near the end, and it will naturally break off where the woody section begins and the soft section begins. So you don't want these ends of the asparagus, they're very, very hard and unpleasant to chew. And we're just going to keep the nice form and just kind of chop those in half like that. And they'll go in there. Give it a stir around. So you want it nice and hot and quick for this. I'm just going to start warming this pan up for our next dish. And also going to throw some garlic in, and I find my garlic press, and this just adds a little bit of extra body to them as well. Garlic can burn easily, so maybe that's why I'm adding this last. It'll still get cooked through, but it's not really within the initial kind of heat that happens with the onions. There we go, lovely. And all we do at the end is just garnish it with some nice kind of olives, and that'll kind of finish that off, but we'll wait till it's finished cooking. So it's nice and hot. We'll turn down a little bit so it doesn't burn, and do keep an eye on it. We are multitasking here. Now this next dish uses chickpeas or garbanzo beans, and the way I love to cook my garbanzo beans is I cook a big pot up, and then I put them all into containers like this in the freezer, and they're available to use whenever you want. So they basically sit in the freezer for months on end, kind of become a solid block. But if you throw them in a colander and put some hot water through it, within a very short time you can actually defrost them. It only takes a couple of minutes. So you could make this dish with fresh chickpeas or canned chickpeas, but this is the best way. And in my freezer at home I have probably any time maybe 10 or 20 little containers full of chickpeas and other beans that I can use at any time. They taste fresher. I think I've done a costing once, and the cost is about a quarter of the price of buying them canned. So you can save a lot of money, and the convenience is there, and they're just lovely and fresh. So there you go, just probably 30 seconds, and those chickpeas are, you know, almost as good as they've just been cooked fresh. So we're going to put them in here. And this is a really simple recipe, and I actually discovered it by accident one day when I cooked my chickpeas. I kind of thought, oh, these chickpeas are lovely and soft and delicious, I just want to just try them. So I just put them in a pan with these ingredients, and within seconds I'm like, this is actually really nice. It's really simple. Just a little bit of olive oil, just 1 or 2 teaspoons. I'm going to put a little bit of salt, probably quarter to half teaspoon of salt. And again, you kind of want to flavour it to your taste. And we're just going to start cooking that. But the ingredient that makes this really special is the garlic. So again, I'm going to get my garlic press. I'll take the skin out from the previous use. So there's a bit of garlic in this meal, and garlic is a wonderful ingredient. If you don't like it, this is probably not the first recipe or episode you want to cook. So I'm going to use 6 lovely big cloves of garlic, and it's just going to mingle these chickpeas really nicely. Just get the other garlic skins out, or most of them, and do another 3 cloves. You can chop your garlic up really finely as well if you want, but this is just a great time-saving tip. And again, you don't want the garlic to burn, but just look at this, these guys will stir. But just to kind of mingle with those chickpeas, which are generally nice and soft. Look at that. Bring it up to heat. I better salt these vegetables as well. Just a light bit of salt. Just probably a quarter to a half a teaspoon. Max. I'm just going to turn these down and warm them. As you can see, they're getting lovely and crisp. They probably just need a few more minutes of cooking through, just to make the difference between being raw and being nice and cooked and crisp. But don't you just love the colour? If we'd even just missed out the zucchini and the asparagus, this would look like a totally different dish with different colours. So I'll turn that down. Now look at the risotto. How's this going? As you can see, look at that. It's kind of creamy, nearly. It's kind of all cooked through, and that rice has absorbed all that lovely stock and really nice concentrated flavour. So we're now going to add the Parmeshew cheese, which we made before. And we're going to spoon in probably around about perhaps 4 tablespoons. Go an extra one, make it 5 tablespoons. You're just going to stir it through. So traditionally with a risotto you would stir through Parmesan cheese, which would melt. But this lovely Parmeshew cheese will kind of add a really nice, the flavour from the nutritional yeast, and you've got the lovely creaminess of the cashews. And as you can see, that's turned it from just like a rice dish, and it kind of just adds that creaminess, which is the hallmark of a risotto. So I'm just going to serve it in this lovely white dish. Check it's not hot. and just serve it in, pour it in. There we go, come on. Can be risky doing this, the whole lot can go at once. You kind of plate it up. You want to let gravity do its work. Create a bit of a mound. Always go for height when you're presenting. Just like that. Turn the gas off. And we'll just add a little bit of garnish on that and some more Parmeshew cheese, and that will be lovely. These chickpeas are getting there. So what we're going to do with those in the break is just add some more herbs and put them in this lovely blue dish. And we're going to present these as they are. Pull the cheesecakes out of the freezer, and our meal is complete. And there you go. Make sure you put those little finishing touches on your dishes. A little sprinkle of herbs, olives or lemon slices can really make the difference in terms of how things look. The cheesecakes have firmed up nicely in the freezer. After they're frozen, you can kind of put them in the fridge and serve them while they're chilled, and that way they'll remain nice and firm. Thank you for joining me today on Cook 30, and I look forward to seeing you next time.